Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Brad Davis. I'm Executive Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer for Opus Bank. And I want to tell you, I was reading an article not long ago that was talking about how banks could improve the relationship they have with their customers. And I could not have agreed more with the observation. The article said, stop selling your products and services and start becoming a champion of issues that are important to your clients. And we couldn't have agreed with that more. And what I loved about the article is it said, a recent example of a bank that's taking that direction is Opus Bank, and we were really, really proud of that. But it is the focus of this evening, focusing on issues which are important to our clients. And I have to tell you, every single person who's standing in this room tonight was hand-selected to be here this evening. We're so proud that you are, because the issue we're going to have a conversation about tonight is one that's important to all of us. Take a look.
California is losing. We've lost more businesses than any other state in the country, 65,000 more than the next runner-up. When it comes to businesses, California ranks 50th. At Opus, we're not waiting for the government to fix this problem. We're partnering with California's entrepreneurs and business leaders to help them drive growth. Let's work together to support the businesses in our state with the vision and ability to drive expansion and job growth in California. Together, we can put California back on the map.
We were so shocked, really, by that statistic in California CEO magazine when we saw that, and California was ranked dead last in the nation. And Stephen said, we need to do something about that. We need to begin a conversation with people throughout the state about how important this is and what we can do about this today and now. And so we've convened tonight business leaders and thought leaders and a special guest of honor to join Stephen tonight on stage to talk about this issue, because we really do believe that working together we can put California back on the map. Our guest of honor is Reggie Gilyard. He's the Dean of the George L. Argyros School of Management and Economics at Chapman University. And I have to tell you, Reggie's leadership has been very important, because we know it's important to Chapman to build strong relationships with businesses and business leaders, and I think Reggie tonight's just an example of that. You're demonstrating that all over the county, and we're so grateful that you're here tonight. Now, what you may not know about Reggie is that his reach is far beyond Orange County and far beyond the state of California. He's a former partner and managing director of the $4 billion global firm Boston Consulting Group. I'm sure you've heard of it. He's a graduate of the Air Force Academy. He's a graduate of Harvard University, where he received his MBA. And today, Reggie serves on a multitude of boards here in Orange County. He's on the board of United Way of Orange County. He's on the board of the Pacific Charter School Development. It's a national nonprofit real estate developer which builds charter schools, and one of them you may know about, it's right here in Santa Ana, El Sol Charter School. He's also currently serving on the international accrediting body for all business schools. And so he's a busy guy, but in fact, he and his wife, Suji, have responsibility for the largest development and management project in the history of mankind, and that is their twin 5-year-old daughters. Would you please join me in welcoming Dean Gilyard?
Well, Brad, thank you for that kind introduction, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce our host for this evening, Mr. Stephen Gordon. Stephen is the chairman, CEO, and president of Opus Bank. He's the founding chairman. And Opus started in 2010 after the recapitalization of Bay Cities National Bank. Stephen has been in the banking industry for 29 years now. And over that period of time, he's led a number of successful companies. Stephen was the partner, a partner at Sandler O'Neill and Partners, a very highly respected investment banking firm in New York. Stephen was also the founding chairman and CEO of Commercial Capital Bancorp, and later the chairman and CEO of Fremont investments and also loan. So over the course of his career, Stephen has been really well known for leading the exceptional growth and profitability of a number of different companies. And in addition to that, he's also the chairman of the Opus Community Foundation. And last but not least, in his personal life, Stephen is the husband of Madeline Gordon, a wonderful lady. And also, just as I am, Stephen is the parent of daughters. And so you can imagine he's been a very busy guy. Let's welcome Stephen Gordon to the stage.
So I like being introduced as the husband of Madeline.
I think she'd appreciate that as well.
That scored points for me.
So, Stephen, we have a number of distinguished business leaders and entrepreneurs in the audience. And as the dean of a business school that also focuses on jobs and the economy in California, can you give us your views on just the business climate in California and whether or not it's improving, not improving? How do you think about that?
I was actually just discussing this afternoon. It's interesting. You know, we went into this deep fall with the recession, and I was actually concerned it would go into a depression. I just had no idea what that really would look like in this country, and specifically in California. And if you look at where we are only a handful of years later, you know, the strength and resilience of the economy is pretty impressive. You know, we've now gotten to the point where businesses are actually thinking about expanding and growing. You've got businesses that are actually thinking about hiring. You've got nice revenue growth going on across industries, both business and real estate. And at the same time, you've got a banking system that's finally in a position to be able to support that growth. And if I compare to where it was just a handful of years ago, across the nation, but also very specifically in California, the banking system was completely decimated and wasn't in a position to be able to back anybody. It was more focused on trying to clean up its own mess. It was more concerned about its internal loan book. It was more concerned about trying to figure out, do I have enough capital to survive? Am I going to go out of business? Am I going to get seized as a bank? And you might remember reading all those years ago about in Iceland, for instance, people went to the ATM machine, you couldn't get money out of the machine. So imagine if the American banking system, US banking system, got to that point. So if you now look where we are, the system is extremely healthy. It's loaded with capital. It's the healthiest it's been. You've got clean balance sheets, and banks are suddenly waking up and figuring out that maybe they should actually make a loan. So it's gone back into this competitive mode again, where some of the insanity is starting again, and you're starting to see, in my opinion, bubbles emerging. Now, where I get really concerned about that, and I've kind of been on the soapbox talking about it, and you know, whether I make friends saying this or not, you know, I know, you know, we back a lot of real estate investment, we back entrepreneurs, business owners, and real estate investors, and yet I get concerned, even though probably half of what we do is real estate oriented. If you look at California as a whole, then you look at Southern California and you look at Orange County, we're kind of in the real estate investment mecca of the world. And I get very, very concerned that real estate has the ability to cycle, and it seems like every 10 years we go into a bit of a bust environment. And when that happens, it actually has the ability to pull down business. So I've been very strongly, passionately trying to figure out ways to be able to expand business, support business, enable business to really grow and become stronger, and in a sense embolden business, so that inevitably when we do hit the next real estate cycle, which we will do, that business actually is strong enough to get through that. And so that was my doomsday thing, not to take the air out of the room, but we are going to hit a bubble. We will hit a cycle again at some point, and everything that's going on right now is setting up for it. Low interest rates, zero interest rates for as long as we've had it, making everything seem to work when rates are at zero. You know, that's not healthy. It's not sustainable. And if you think about what has happened, you know, the Fed came out, and I don't like this particular Fed versus, I liked it when Greenspan, you know, Boston Consulting, but I liked it when Greenspan, you know, the mystery was when he walked into the Fed meeting, you know, was the briefcase under his left arm or his right arm, and that would dictate, you know, the speculation as to whether rates were going to rise, decline, or whatever. Right, this Fed instead is encouraged to be incredibly transparent And they actually recently came out and said exactly what rates would do, when it's going to happen over the next couple of years in terms of a rising rate environment. Since they did that, rates have done nothing but decline. So we're still in this mode of a little bit too much money in the system, a little bit too loose of an environment, and that's enabling the economy maybe to artificially seem to do as well as it's doing. But I'm very concerned.
So you're not so optimistic about jobs growth in California and where it can go?
Well, what I'm concerned about is, when you think about what we just ran across for you, you think about California and the recovery that California has gone through. You combine that with, it appears that Sacramento on the surface, I'm not going to say names, just Sacramento, our administration, it appears on the surface that they did a great job taking us from a deficit to being in a surplus. But that was done on the shoulders of all the taxpayers in the state of California. And my concern is that this trend is just starting to pick up speed, momentum of businesses leaving the state. And it's not going away. And as much as the administration wanted to deny that anybody would ever leave this beautiful enclave, this beautiful bubble in California, and actually leave. And I remember I was in a meeting a couple of years ago, and the governor came down and he was talking to everybody, all the like leading CEOs in the county. And I remember him saying, "Where are you going to go? You're going to go to Texas? You want to leave here, go to Texas? Go." And it was shocking to me, that arrogance was there. Now the reality is we're surrounded by states, Arizona, Nevada, Washington, that are very, very low tax states. And I look at what's going on in New York, and I love what's going on in New York. They've announced the Startup New York program, and that's coming out of Albany. So it's coming out of the administration, it's coming from government, and they created enterprise tax zones across the state. If you move your business to New York and create jobs in New York, you're not going to pay taxes for 10 years. Now you can argue whether that works or doesn't work, right? But then they're also doing a brilliant job of partnering with universities and bringing IP out of the universities, creating jobs out of the universities, enabling those with business plans that actually are valid businesses to come out and create businesses and job growth in the state. Right? So then you look at California, and it's ranked 50 out of 50 as far as being a business-friendly environment, and that's got to change. So I'm very worried about jobs leaving. And you even look at, CKE, who plans on opening up 300 new locations, and they're headquartered in California, and they plan on none of them being in California. And that's how bad it is. So I heard a story in my office on Monday about the hell that somebody went through to start a business here in California, and it took them 11 years to get it off. Yeah, you, Jeff.
Oh.
Yeah, Jeff.
That's me.
I thought you were talking about hamburger.
No, I told you there was a possibility I might actually, bring you up.
Associating with hamburgers.
Right, but we met on Monday in my office, and I heard this unbelievable story about his business, and we're not even banking him yet, but I was blown away by the fact that he's tried to start his business. It took him 11 years to get it through the California system, right, the bureaucracy.
11 years to get all the permits to recycle waste, which is based on what the state actually is requiring.
Right? And in 2 years since you started it, what have your revenues grown to?
I've gone from 400,000 a year to 12 million.
Right? But it took 11 years for the state to enable a business to exist. Right? Now, I could argue that if a business doesn't leave the state and just simply generates more revenue, right, then now you've got a broader tax base to tax, or revenue base to tax. Businesses don't have to leave the state if this is an environment where we can actually expand and grow our businesses.
Let me ask then, so there are government solutions coming out of New York, no government solutions coming out of California. What, aside from government solutions in California, do you think the banking industry might be able to bring to help with this issue?
Right, so I already said that banks they're becoming more competitive, they're waking up, they're realizing that they've built up all this cash on their balance sheets through all the deposits that went into the banking system. And now they're waking up and realizing it might be a good idea to lend that cash that they're only earning like 0.25% on, and actually lend the money out and start earning appropriate returns that hopefully are generating appropriate risk-adjusted returns, because rates are so artificially low right now. And we've decided to take it upon ourselves and not wait for the government to do it from the top down, not wait for the state to do something about it. And I think it's very important that, in a sense, we take it into our own hands. And no, I'm not recommending revolt. I'm not recommending riots in the street. What I'm saying is that what we've got to do is A, decide that entrepreneurship truly is alive and well in America, and that it is not a bad thing, that capitalism actually is not a bad thing, that expanding our businesses is good. And what we've decided to do, and we're announcing this today, is we're making $1 billion commitment to backing business, that's billion with a B, commitment to backing business expansion in the state of California for those who actually have a desire to expand and grow their businesses, create jobs in California, and create that true economic growth in the state. So I don't have control over businesses coming to us. I don't have control over businesses deciding to expand. What we do have control over is creating an environment, an economic means, a financial means by which that can happen. Creating that environment where someone thinks that they really truly have a partner for growth, where we truly understand the business, where we back companies, we don't just lend to them, but we really partner with them and enable that expansion to occur.
Oh, that's fantastic. So no Occupy Fashion Island.
No.
$1 billion investment.
Yeah.
Okay, I like this over here. That's good.
And I don't want to get into a debate over tax rates and whether taxes are good or bad. I think we all have to pay our share. I learned a long time ago that it's not about what you pay, it's about what you keep. And at the same time, it's also important to give back and be philanthropic and enable those who actually are truly doing good to do that good. But as far as enabling it from a financial perspective, from the bottom up, I think that we can all make a difference and have an impact. Now, what can the banking system do? I challenge the rest of the banking system to join us in this. I don't want to be the only guy out there, because $1 billion, it may sound like a lot, but in the whole scheme of things, it's not a lot. And if the whole banking system were to truly step up and do what they need to do and do what they should be doing and be a part of this from the bottom up, then we could truly have an impact. And it's not just in California, but it's across the whole country.
Oh, that's helpful. I know you're aware of the Wells Fargo commitment for $100 million for small business.
$100 billion.
$100 billion, right. How is this different than what they're trying to do?
All right, so Wells's approach, and I respect it, and I think that's phenomenal that they're doing it. I think more banks need to step up and do this. But Wells's approach is nationwide. I believe it's for businesses with 20 or fewer employees. And again, that's into every state. So if you kind of slice and dice it, it actually doesn't add up to a lot in terms of the ability to impact business. And when you're talking about 20 employees, that covers a certain base of the business environment out there, but there are a lot of businesses that absolutely would not fit that, wouldn't qualify, and maybe that's a different department within Great Big Huge Wells.
Got it. No, that's helpful.
There's something else that, I don't know if you're going to go there, but there's something else that I think is very important that we do. And I'd also like to announce this tonight, that it's not just the $1 billion commitment. I talked about, when I talked about Startup New York, one of the things that I really think is phenomenal is the partnership with the universities. I think that is incredibly important. And something that I also want to announce tonight is that we have a partnership with Chapman, and it's on 2 levels, and it's both on internships. I think we're obligated, and I think it's important that the talented, bright, driven kids have an opportunity to get into the workforce and get experience. I mean, the way that I got my opportunity was through somebody opening a door for me. I almost got there. Somebody opened the door for me and gave me an opportunity. And I feel the obligation, all of us, to do the same. For those of us that are leaders, that have companies that are expanding and growing, there are phenomenally talented kids in our universities, locally, right here, right in our backyard. And it's a matter of partnering with the universities, getting into the university, working through that system to find the bright and talented kids, and then creating that opportunity for them to be a part of what we all do. And I look at my daughters, and my oldest daughter, through her internship opportunities, figured out what she wants to do with her life. And it's a really big thing when we have that impact. The other level that we're doing it at, in addition to the internship, is that we've actually hired out of the internship program. And Danny, are you somewhere in here? Is Danny in the room?
Danny Lee?
Danny came out of Chapman, and look, Danny showed up, and it's really funny. I mean, sorry, Danny, but I'm going to do this. But Danny showed up as an intern, and Miguel, you're here? Miguel Cerricio runs treasury management at Opus. And I mean, Miguel is a world-class guy. Miguel ran treasury management for Citibank, for all of South America, and then came to the U.S. and ran it at some pretty significant banks here in the U.S. And we were fortunate enough to get Miguel. So Miguel had Danny as an intern, and this was 2 summers ago. And Miguel was going to be out of the office for a week. And Danny basically stood up in our Monday morning meeting, and he said to the entire senior team, all right, so with Miguel out, I'm now running treasury. And if anybody's got any questions, any problems, any issues, come to me, I'll take care of everything. Right? So I realized that not only is he incredibly bright, but he's got the gift of gab. And in a very short period of time, he's turned into a real star within the company. And finding that talent and grooming that talent, I'd rather hire 20 Dannys than 20 seasoned bankers who have been doing it for 40 years, and I got to undo everything that they've done, everything they've learned, and now teach them the Opus way of doing things. And we all, as leaders in the community, as business leaders, we've got the ability to do that. And that talent exists inside our universities. Additionally, we're going to be partnering as far as mentoring, and I think that's just as important. They go hand in hand.
Well, I tell you, we really appreciate the partnership that we've experienced, and the partnership being formalized going forward is a real huge benefit for the university, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah. It's really that, if you think about Orange County, and I've got the microphone, so I could do this for hours. Right? Orange County is the 6th largest county in the U.S. by populace. We absolutely are not the 6th major business hub in the U.S. And we've got the ability to become that, but it's going to take a real concerted effort by all of us from the bottom up making that happen.
You talk about partnership and getting back to the business commitment, the $1 billion commitment. You and I were talking the other day about how you work with your clients, which I thought was interesting, and maybe we can touch on, which is the lending is one thing, obviously, and that's a financial commitment. But there's also some work around just helping your clients strategically in their growth and expansion plans. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. I'm a former investment banker by background, and that's stuck in me probably for the rest of my life. And I don't like talking about rate. I don't like talking about loan. I don't like talking about product. What I love doing is learning about people's businesses. Why do they do what they do? How do they do what they do? Why did they launch what they launched? What do they do every day? What is the passion about it? And we'll eventually get to how financially this all works. But taking that I really try to take more of an advisory, consultative, more of an investment banker approach to people's businesses and dreams and aspirations. And I think when we do that, we're a lot more impactful. We're not just reactive, responsive, but instead we're a little constructive, and we have the hard conversations from more of an advisory standpoint. Now, you can't do that if you've never run a business before. There are a lot of investment bankers that, when I made the transition from investment banking to banking, it became phenomenally obvious to me that investment bankers, they may be incredibly bright, and now I'm gonna go at myself on this one, but they have no idea how the business really runs. They've never run a business, right? They pontificate about what you should do. They understand the numbers, and yet they haven't operated anything. They've operated their specific fiefdom within the investment bank. I'd say that at Opus, it couldn't be more different. And when you hear bankers say they love to bank entrepreneurs, I get a kick out of that, because most bankers have never done anything entrepreneurial, and yet they want to bank entrepreneurs, right? Right. So whereas from my standpoint, I've always been very bottom line oriented. I've run businesses, I've bought businesses, I've taken companies public, my own company's public. I've sold companies. I've got 550 employees in the company. I worry about a lot of the same things that business owners worry about. I'm running a business. you're running a business. I'm up late at night when I'm starting the company, worrying about, the exact same things that everybody worries about in the running their business. And, that's a whole different thing than a banker just kind of being reactive. Now, on top of that, I had a phenomenal day in Arizona last week. Jeff Corey, you're somewhere in the room? Right, Jeff. So you and I were at lunch, and in the room, someone was talking about they banked at Wells. Remember that? Yeah. And he wanted to understand how we would approach things when the economy goes sideways, how we would handle their business, and how that relationship works. What does relationship mean to me? And this isn't meant to be an Opus commercial or anything. This is just, I'm having fun now. Right? So my response was a very simple question. I said, so when you had trouble in the last downturn, in Arizona every 10 years there's a downturn, I asked him, so how did your conversation go with John Stumpf? And he just looked at me, and if you don't know, John Stumpf is the chairman and CEO of Wells, right? And Wells is a multi-trillion-dollar institution, and his response was, I've never met John Stumpf. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then the other guy next to him, he banks at J.P. Morgan, right? Or Chase, the same thing, right? And he asked me to elaborate on that because he banks at Chase, and you want to know how that would all go, if there's challenges and everything. What does relationship mean to me? Same question. And I said, so when you had a problem with your business, how did that negotiation go with Jamie Dimon? You're laughing, right? And he goes, I get it, because I've never even seen Jamie Dimon, right? Jamie Dimon is chairman and CEO of Chase, right? So what relationship means to me is actually, that we're there, that we can be impactful, that I'm accessible. Our culture is very different. We took 44,000 square feet that used to be Morrison Foerster's headquarters that was full of, God only knows, 50, 60, 70 offices. And we broke it all down, and I think we have 44,000 square feet with 5 offices. And it's a very open environment. And for those of you who have been at Opus, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I sit out on the floor with all the senior team, and if I'm in my office more than 10% of the day, it's a terrible day. And we're very interactive, very entrepreneurial, very accessible, and the idea generation flows around the whole company. So it's very different that way.
So this consultative approach, you've done that with sort of major clients that are very visible here today, Nectar, Bootlegger, Rubies. Is that happening at the CEO level, or is it at a different level?
It's happening at the CEO, CFO, and in some cases controller instead of CFO. Sometimes it's chief operating officer, but it varies across the board. But we're doing it across industry. It's so Steve Schultz, you get so much press from Opus. We've got you blasted all over the world, right? We actually do have more clients than just Steve Schultz at Nectar. We just love Steve Schultz at Nectar. But we're banking the healthcare sector, we're banking the tech sector, income property, so multifamily commercial real estate sector, manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, and we bank the banking system. So we're kind of across the board with very, very specific niche focus and really high quality bankers inside of each niche. And then where I think we're extremely unique is that it's not just our bankers who have very specific expertise, it's also paired up with the credit side of the company that has the exact same expertise. So you don't get generalists on either side of the company. But it's generally at the highest levels of the firms interacting with each other.
I see. And for the $1 billion commitment, is there a target sweet spot in terms of revenue or growth aspirations?
Well, I more look at it in terms of loan size, whereas a lot of our bankers think of it in terms of revenue, and then they translate it to EBITDA, and then they come up with a multiple of that to figure out the size of the loan. I just go right to the size of the loan. So we've got about $800 million of capital. We've grown from 0 to about $5 billion in total assets. So our loans range anywhere from, let's say, $1 million to $30 million in loan size, kind of in between there. With a sweet spot, I'm boring you. The sweet spot is kind of like in the, let's call it the 3 to 15.
Got it. That's helpful. Another really important question, what's up with the socks?
All right, so I don't get a lot of creative outlets, and it comes through in the socks.
Well, thank you.
That was good.
They're cool, man.
So that's great. It's been really helpful. So financial commitments to the university infrastructure, all that's fantastic. Where do you see sort of the vision of Opus going to beyond this?
All right, so the vision I had when the year before I started the company, you have to picture where things were. You know, there was such decimation. I felt that a new bank needed to merge, one with a clean balance sheet and a lot of capital. And if you just put it all in perspective, you got the multi-trillion-dollar banks, so the B of A's, Chases, Wells, etc. And so they're multi-trillions, and then it drops off, and you hit U.S. Bank at about 350 billion, and it drops again down to Union Bank at about a little over 100 billion, and then you hit a couple that are around the 50 billion range, like Comerica, and then there are a handful of us that are anywhere between, let's say, 5 to 15 billion. And then you got a whole slew of these things that are like 200 million in assets that can't really support your growth, that you end up outgrowing after one loan. There isn't a lot of real vision, and not a lot of, there's relationship, right? There's community banking, there's service, but there isn't enough critical mass, and we kind of fall in between. And the idea in my head has always been to build a super regional or super community bank. And where we stand today, again, is at 5 billion in assets with 58 locations in all the major metros up and down the entire West Coast. So the Phoenix metros, Phoenix, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley Metro, San Diego County, Orange County, LA County, into the San Francisco Bay Area. And then into now, I don't know if you all saw today, we announced that we're opening in Portland, Oregon. And we already have bankers in Portland, Oregon, about 5, 6 bankers. And then we're all around the Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, Puget Sound region of Washington. We're going to become much deeper through there and become much more significant, much larger, while still never losing sight of our culture. I really obsess around culture and the whole idea of not losing sight of that community bank, relationship bank, ability to partner with our clients and enable that expansion and growth. And that's the real secret. The real secret is, how do you have that critical mass, yet not lose sight of what really seems to work extraordinarily well, that seems to really be resonating well with our constituents, consisting of community, clients, bankers that want to join Opus, bankers who are already with Opus, we've even got shareholders, etc. So it's we're going to become much larger. I don't have visions of grandeur of got to dominate the country or got to be up and down the East Coast and the West Coast. I don't want to wreck my life too much, and I think Madeline would kill me if I said, "Hon, we're expanding on the East Coast now." She'd say, "That's fine, I'm not." And so I think there's a major need for what we're doing, and we've barely just begun. So if you think about it, just to put it in perspective, as much as we're the fastest growing bank in the Western U.S. and amongst a handful of the fastest growing banks in the U.S. amongst 6,900 banks in the U.S., we've only got, let's say, on the multifamily lending side, where we are the second largest lender on the whole West Coast on multifamily properties. In Los Angeles County, we only have 1% of market share. So there's, this is a very large universe, the West Coast. If you rotate it on its axis to the East Coast, it's 14 states or something from New York to Florida. Here it's only a few states, but it has as many sub-markets up and down the West Coast. So we've got a lot to do. We've got a major obsession around having that impact and making a difference. And like I said, we've just begun.
That sounds great. Well, we want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending tonight.